Hello, welcome to 7 Minutes of Science. I'm your host, Eddie Edwards, coming to you live from Mission Acceptable. This is our weekly science show in which I attempt to do the 7 biggest stories from the world of science in 7 minutes or less. Hopefully less. If it's more, I will have to do the cinnamon challenge. It was a cinnamon challenge last week, so that might seem unimaginative. I personally think it's unimaginative and would have said we should do the ice bucket challenge this week, but apparently there's only a certain number of horrible challenges that exist, so they stay on the board until I fail. Yay! Anyway, that will be the last time I touch my face this video, and probably I'm not going to do as much hand waving because we listen to your feedback here. I'd also like to thank everybody who watched the last video, who shared the last video, who subscribed to the last video. We got over 100 views, which for a first video is amazing. We're really happy, really pleased with ourselves, really proud of what we're doing here. And thank you. We couldn't be doing this without you people who are watching it. So thanks again for that. And now off we go to the start. 7 minutes on the clock. Clock will appear up here in 3, 2, 1, go. Right, Monday, NASA. Anything starting with NASA is already a good start, and they've released data that has said that the bottom of these seas haven't warmed up. So not a massively depressing story, is it? We're already off to a better start than last week's carousel of nightmares. Now I'm going to say a sentence that a lot of people are going to ignore, and then a sentence after it, a sentence that a lot of people are going to listen to, and then a sentence that a lot of people are going to ignore. The second one is the important sentence. Right. Over the last few years, the speed of global warming has slowed down. That's the first sentence. There's the important bit. That's not to say that global warming is over. That's not to say that this isn't a problem. The amount of damage that has already been done is huge, and it is still happening. It is still increasing. It is still going on. We can't ignore this problem. But there's less heat than the predictions suggested. One of the theories was that this extra heat was going into the very bottom of the ocean. That's turned out to not be true. This data has come from the GRACE, Jason 1 and Jason 2 satellites. You might remember the Jason 1 satellite from last week's story on seamounts, very busy satellite. And also data collected from the array of ocean probes called the Argo array, which means that overall the data will be very good, but the project director will be cruelly overlooked by the Academy. Yeah, that's right, 2 Ben Affleck jokes in 2 episodes. Basically, this says that this area isn't heating up, so right for now the creatures from the coolest episode of the Blue Planet are going to be fine. But it doesn't mean we know what's going on. It's still this unaccounted for heat. I'm not going to speculate on where that comes from. That would be irrational and unscientific. If you want that kind of stuff, go to a newspaper, if they're still a thing. Are they still a thing? They are. Why? Anyway, moving on. Tuesday, Nobel Prize in Physics has been announced, and the winner is, man, I feel like I should have a gold envelope. Anyway, the winner is Asumi Sasaki, Hiroshi Amano, and Shuji Nakamura. Good. For the invention of the gallium nitride-based blue LED. Now, I like this story for a bunch of reasons. Firstly, is that in researching, I found that LEDs were invented in the 60s, which I don't even think of LEDs as having needed inventing, which is ridiculous because everything needed inventing. But also because I remember watching Tomorrow as well, back in the 90s, where they were talking about the problems and troubles of making blue LEDs. So this has kind of come full circle for me. Couldn't really be done then, and now here in Sci-Fi Year 2014, here we are, and we've got them. Awesome. In addition to that, by using a YAG phosphor coating, you can make a blue LED into a white light, or you can backfill it with a red and a green LED, and you can get white light. And a 4-watt LED bulb can do the job of an 80-watt. It's a 6-watt LED bulb can do the work of a 40-watt standard bulb, which means you can reduce the carbon footprint for lighting on a building of 85%. We love your work, blue LEDs. You're the guide to the future. Wednesday, Nobel Prize for Chemistry was announced, but because I'm hamstrung by the format of this show, I'll be ignoring that in favour of a cooler story. The UK Met Office has opened a centre that is going to be dedicated to the forecasting of space weather. Told you it was cooler. This is all to do with the weather that happens on the surface of the sun, solar flares and storms. I would have called them sunstorms, but I'm pretty certain that'd be infringing on a Marvel copyright. And if it isn't, why isn't Sunstorm in the X-Men? He should be. The US has been able to do this for years, but the fact that the UK has jumped on board is kind of a sea change thing where more and more countries are taking this seriously. You might think that the weather on the surface of the sun doesn't matter, to which I say, Pat, I say. These big solar storms can hit our satellites, can do a vast amount of electrical damage, causes real problems for us. And with this, we can't stop them, but we can predict them. We can take methods to shield ourselves and stop ourselves from getting technologically bombed back to the stage of being North Korea. And that's the bad bit of North Korea, not the rich folk, the poor people who, think the government can read their minds and have to eat their own children. Thursday, researchers out of Harvard announced that a breakthrough in stem cell research has led to what might be a cure for type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is the diabetes that affects people who haven't really done anything wrong in life, as opposed to the one that happens to greedy people. Type 1 diabetes is when your immune system attacks and kills the beta cells in the pancreas. Stem cells are blank cells that your body uses to build new tissue. They copy the other tissue around them, so you can use them to be any cell. And in this case, Professor Doug Melton has managed to use them to create the millions of beta cells required to successfully transplant into somebody who has type 1 diabetes. Only affects about 10% of sufferers type 1 diabetes, but it is most common among children because they haven't had as much chance to get depressingly obese as adults. It's also worth noting that Melton has been working on a cure for this disease for 23 years since he promised his son he'd find a cure after his son was diagnosed. So you may one day be a better scientist than Doug Melton, but you will probably not be a better father unless you are that guy from Lorenzo's Oil. Friday, science has been working on making a robot that can walk like a man for years, and in the process trying to sin against nature. But apparently another group had decided to sack the idea off entirely and knocked out a robot snake. Why would you do that? Robot snakes are already emotionless killing machines. I don't see why you need to make robot versions. But this is basically what we've been told for years about the robopocalypse that we've seen in so many movies is apparently going to be scarier than we thought. But anyway, this was part of copying a sidewinder snake so that they could study how it travelled up sand dunes. They've made a robot that can do the same thing. This is actually very useful when it comes to exploring of desert planets, accessing archaeological sites that we couldn't previously get into, search and rescue missions, and of course the inevitable enslavement of all mankind by our robot overlords. And finally, our two and finally stories, the Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded. Sorry chemists, I didn't come to you earlier, but space weather. Was awarded to Eric Betzig, Stephen W. Hell and William E. Morner for the development of a super-resolved fluorescence microscopy. Now, it previously been believed that a microscope couldn't possibly see anything that was smaller than half the size of the wavelength of light being used by the microscope. This was known as Ab's resolution limit. And these scientists have discovered that it's bull. It turns out that delivering pulses of energy through precision lasers can make molecules glow through a process known as fluorescence. This can be coupled with a second laser that suppresses that around the area. 2 lasers, twice as many as you get in most stories. Now you can do use this to light up small areas and very slowly light up all the different molecules in the area on a single exposure, and this cheats the whole limit. It's not as good as electron microscopy, but that only works in a vacuum, so we can't use it to watch biological processes as they happen. So this is very, very exciting. Could open up a whole world of stuff that we don't know about from inside our own bodies and inside the bodies of other things on this planet. And finally, scientists have discovered a way to erase specific from memories from mice using lights, essentially the neuralizer from Men in Black. Nice work, scientists. But if you're going to make anything from the Will Smith movies, I want a giant mechanical spider. This has basically been the work done by Kazuma Tanaka and Brian Wiltgen out of UC Davis. They were testing the theory that when you remember something, the hippocampus recreates the exact thing that your cortex was doing, and by shutting down the hippocampus with a beam of light, managed to stop mice from being able to remember things. But I would say don't get your memories erased unless you are told to by a doctor or have a prescription for it, because otherwise you won't learn any lessons in life. You'll end up very shallow, and while it makes a good science fiction movie, it doesn't make a good society. And we are done. Stop. Still under 7 minutes. I'm really good at this, but I am aware that eventually I'm going to have to fail because people who watch videos on the internet are kind of sadistic and you want to see me suffer. So, I don't know, maybe in the next 2 weeks or so I will deliberately attempt to write a script far too long that I won't be able to read it in time. Keep watching. Oh God, why am I doing this? Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you like the video, like the video. If you think somebody you know might like the video, then share the video. And if you want to see more videos we do, then subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. If you see any interesting science news stories throughout the week that you think I might like, you think I might want to talk about, send them to me. It saves me from doing the research myself, and I'm always after new and interesting stories that we can share here. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and as always, good luck in your endeavours. If your endeavours be good. And goodbye.